It really had to do with where we needed to be. Wheat was already elevated. Producers had pretty much made up their mind as to what they were going to grow. The contracting season for period for malt barley begins sometime in late fall of the previous crop year, and then extends into the spring prior to sowing. Most of the contracts were signed ahead of the conflict in Ukraine.
Okay.
It did impact probably 20-30%, specifically up in Canada, where they tend to wait a little bit longer before they make their planning decisions. But it did have an impact, but it could have been worse.
Okay. So the impact of the war, the Russian war in the Ukraine, is really in adding volatility to the market.
Adding volatility to the market, and then it's going to have a carry-on impact to 2023 crop, as you're looking at elevated wheat prices, in historically high areas, 12 bucks a bushel, pretty much on average across the three boards. That's going to drive pricing up for next year's crop as we start our contracting season this fall.
So that would be contracting for wheat pricing in 2023. It's going to impact malt pricing in 2024.
I think a better way of saying it, wheat pricing in 2022, fall of 2022, is going to impact crop year 2023, which in turn is going to impact the malt marketing year 2024, right?
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. What is going on in the market today? What are the concerns that you see today?
Well, on top of the Ukraine situation, we had a carry-on drought through the winter, carrying on from last growing season. So it was dry pretty much all winter long through the prairies, relatively speaking. But then we got dumped on with snow, which affected primarily North Dakota, Manitoba, parts of Saskatchewan. Historical snows in March and early April have delayed planting of the northern crop region. The winter grains got planted fine last fall, and but have been impacted by the early drought in the southern plains, primarily Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. So we're looking at a below average yield on the winter wheat, delayed planting on the spring wheat and spring grains. And then the concern, if you look at the drought map today, it doesn't look much different than the drought map of 2021 in Montana and Idaho and Washington and in Alberta. So, it's not a perfect situation by any means going into it. And we have, as we know, no carryout of malting barley, and very little carryout of wheat to carry over into the 2023 marketing year.
What signals are you looking for in the short term that would indicate the situation is getting better or the situation is getting worse?
We'll need very timely rains in the next 60 days. It basically is going to have to be perfect for us to get the bushels that we need, or the production that we need, to come close to satisfying demand. So we'll be watching the weather, the growing season, and anticipated yields to see how that's going to match up relative to demand. I anticipate, given the volatility and the weather patterns, I anticipate that we're going to have issues, and we're going to look at another year where the industry is going to have to look at importing grains from Europe or South America to fill any supply gaps.
If you were a brewer, what would you do? What would you be asking your supplier? What would you be looking for?
Well, I think the first thing is, security of supply. I'd ask my supplier, what their views of the market are, similar to the questions you're asking me today. I'd ask that of my supplier. Same thing. What are the volatility points? What are the timing triggers for the volatility? And I would seriously look at least covering a portion of my demand for 2023 today, just to make sure that I've got some coverage on to protect me against volatility.